Episode number 189. My regular listeners already know that I'm taking a few weeks break and that today is a repeat show. If you're new to the show, you may be a little lost in trying to figure things out. I want to let you know that new shows will be resuming August 7th, and I've gone into the archives and decided to play a few of my most popular shows while I'm taking a break. A quick invitation to anyone who is new to the show to come and join us on our free Facebook group. All you need to do is go to All About Breastfeeding Community on Facebook and join us for some really good mommy support and some breastfeeding education, and get to know other listeners of the show. Who knows, you may wind up even connecting with someone who lives in your area. On today's show, you are going to meet Karey, who shares with us her experience being a new mom. Can you imagine growing up and going through puberty and your teen years without a mom? Being pregnant, giving birth, and your postpartum period without your mom? This is the life that Karey led, and she talks about the impact it had on her as a new mom. She learned a lot during her postpartum period about what she needed and what she would do differently. And she gives us some great insight on the importance of taking care of moms during this postpartum period and some ideas about what we can do to help other new moms postpartum. Enjoy today's show.
I had Nolan on the weekend on a Friday night, and I don't know if everyone in the hospital leaves at 6 o'clock on Friday. There's not a lactation consultant to be found. So the first 48 hours, I'm telling you, I was ready to throw in the towel because I'm like, this is the most challenging thing I've ever done.
Balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 139. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Jill Isenstadt, IBCLC, which stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. I help moms with breastfeeding. Today's show is being brought to you by All About Mothering, which is your online learning center developed just with you in mind. If there is one common thread that I hear mothers say all the time, it is that they wish they were more prepared for pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, and new motherhood. Taking a childbirth and breastfeeding class shortly before your baby is born just doesn't really cut it. So many new mothers say they were so not prepared for new motherhood. Well, All About Mothering fills that huge gap in between taking a few classes and being there for you the whole 2 years. Being there for you during your pregnancy up until your baby turns a year old. All About Mothering is new. It's a baby, a work in progress. I invite you to be a founding member, which means that you get to watch us grow. If you are intrigued and would like to learn more, check out allaboutmothering.com. My guest today is a mom of a 6-year-old boy. I really enjoyed our talk today as we really bonded over a shared philosophy of the postpartum period and the need for us as women to be real and honest and truthful with each other, with other women when they ask us, what's it like being a new mother? She agrees with me that it's okay to tell a pregnant mom that being a new mother is scary and tiring, and yes, a blessing also. We both laughed as we talked about having the same feelings in the early days of new motherhood, thinking, this is all I have ever wanted to do with my life, and I'm so happy. as a new mother, and yet in the next breath asking ourselves why on earth we ever wanted to be a mother. Exhaustion and anxiety sometimes takes over, and this is why we need to be prepared with help for the early days of breastfeeding and postpartum, so we can do more than just get through them, so that we can actually enjoy them. Sit back, relax, and enjoy spending some time with Karey and I as we take you on a bit of journey through the early days of postpartum. Karey Northington is the owner of Northington Fitness and Nutrition. She holds a bachelor's degree in both nursing and psychology and is a certified personal trainer and nutritionist through the ISSA. She is passionate about helping others achieve their goals without restriction. Karey is also an IFBB professional athlete who competes in the bikini division and a published fitness model. Most importantly, she is a wife and mother of a sweet 6-year-old boy, Nolan. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, Karey. I'm so glad that you're able to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Lori. I'm so honored to be on the show.
All right. Well, I would like for you to just start off by telling us a little bit of background about what life was like for you in the family that you grew up in.
The family that I grew up in, I'm an only child. It was just myself, my mom, and my dad. And when I was 12 years old in the 6th grade, unfortunately, my mom passed away. So I grew up right around the adolescent years with just my father. So I have a small family, but it was great.
That's pretty tough for you. Said you were 12 years old?
Yes, I was 12 years old. My mom was diagnosed with lung cancer about 9 months before she passed away when I was 11. And so we had one more birthday together. And it was challenging because that's why I just love that you're doing this podcast, because there's a lot of people out there, myself would be in that group, that they don't have a mom to ask all of these questions to.
For sure. And that's, I have to say, pretty tough. Was there anybody in your life, in your father's life, that was able to help him out? I just think about a guy being with a 12-year-old daughter as she's starting to go through puberty and getting her period and all that other fun stuff.
Yes. Oh, so my dad did it all, Lori. My dad did it all. So he was the one going to the store getting tampons for me. He jokes with me to this day that mothers, he should also be appreciated on Mother's Day. For some of these things. So he
should. Yeah. It's funny because we do that stereotyping, and I found myself like even asking you that question, like that stereotyping just comes out, and I apologize for that. You're thinking, oh, the guy can't do it, but of course he can, and your father proved it.
He did. He really stepped up to the plate on that, I'll tell you. And there wasn't really anything that I couldn't talk to him about, but obviously he couldn't give me sort of the inside scoop of what to expect and what's going on. And then my mom had a sister, my Aunt Carol, who's basically my mom, and she was there to help, but she never had any children of her own. So some of these things that come up when you're pregnant, what to expect, I didn't have that person as my go-to person. So hindsight's 2020. And now if I do ever have another one, this podcast will be such a great resource for me.
Yes, I sure hope so. Yeah. There's so much to learn, and how great it is if we have those seasoned female members in our lives to help us kind of soften the pathway a little bit.
Exactly.
When you were younger, did you have aspirations of what you wanted to be when you grew up? And is it anything like what you're doing now?
When I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor, a pediatrician so much. That was my main goal. And then I decided that I wasn't sure about staying in school that long and the hours that would be demanded of me. And I was thinking that I'd want to do something more at home and raise a family. So I am sort of doing that. I never expected myself to run my own business and be helping people in nutrition and fitness the way I am, but I did go into nursing, which combined the best of both worlds. I had a little bit less hours per week that I would work than if you were a doctor in the hospital. And then I morphed together my psychology and those types of things that interested me the most to make this career for myself that I didn't exactly expect that I would have, but it was following along everything I've been interested in since I was a child.
Did you have anybody in influence in your life that led you to want to become a pediatrician?
Well, my mom was a nurse and she worked in the cardiac care unit, and I would spend a lot of time with her. And I always thought I just wanted to work with kids. That's what I thought that I wanted to do. And then when I came and did the clinical, they would leave me in a room by myself to do an exam or whatnot with one of the kiddos. And I'd be kind of just reading them books because I realized really quick that the healthcare provider isn't the child's favorite person. I wanted to be more on that side of the line. So I decided to work with the adult population instead and kind of be always, on their good side.
Yeah. And I've spoken to a lot of ladies who, interestingly enough, wanted to pursue certain professions, but when they realized that they were fortunate enough actually to realize early on that they wanted to be in a profession that would work well with future motherhood. Some people go into it and they just don't know, and then they become a physician and then are very exhausted and somewhat depressed, realizing that it doesn't work too well with motherhood. But nursing really does, because you can do your 2 or 3 hour, 12-hour shifts, which is demanding enough, but you have more flexibility with nursing than you do when you're full-fledged physician, pediatrician in a practice. It's much more demanding and full-time, and at least until years later, until you get settled and can kind of have it go your way. So you were smart. Very good.
Oh, thank you. I agree with that. I think that nursing, I can't say enough positive things about that career because it really is flexible.
Yeah, and it certainly comes in handy with everything else that you're doing. So that's wonderful. So did you ever have the conversation with your mother? I mean, she was young when she passed away, and yet I won't shy away from this question because I found it interesting enough with other women that I talked to that they actually do have conversations with their mothers when they were very young girls about breastfeeding.
I didn't have that conversation with my mom, and I think it was primarily because I was born early. I was, I believe, 4 weeks early, and my mom went into labor early because she came down with a virus, was dehydrated, and kind of sent her into early labor. So I was not breastfed. I did hear about, how the story played out, and we sort of talked about that, but, I was itty bitty. I wasn't in the NICU, but I want to say that, I was 5 pounds. And at the time when babies were born early, it seemed there was a lot more pushing for them to gain weight and supplementing and such. And so I think that my mom kind of went down that route.
Okay. I'd love to hear about your breastfeeding experience with Nolan. And I always think it's interesting to learn from moms. I guess the first question is, what is it that you thought about breastfeeding when you thought about breastfeeding your own baby? And then to come along with that question is, what, if anything, did you do to prepare during your pregnancy with watching videos or attending a class or reading books about breastfeeding?
So with my son, this is so funny. I read so many books about pregnancy. And if I could do that over, I would be reading the books about the first year and about breastfeeding and those such things, more so than going through the actual pregnancy and what to expect. So I think that my time was spent researching more of what was happening at the moment. And then when I had Nolan, this will come as a shock to you, I'm sure, you don't have very much time to read the breastfeeding books.
Right. My joke about all that is, what you're saying is so common. And the funny thing is like, it's not that we don't know, but we're not really thinking so much that that part of the time is actually quite short. And we're not really so hooked into, but by the time we get finished with the pregnancy and birth, we are going to have a baby to take care of when all of that is said and done. And it's so common for so many of us to not connect those dots. We're just so into the pregnancy and what's happening week by week and month by month that we forget we're having a baby at the end of it all.
I swear to you, that is so true. I sat there and I was so focused on, exactly how big the baby was and this and that. And I'm like, okay, I needed to be looking at how to install a car seat,
Exactly.
how to breastfeed the baby. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I sat there when we were first home alone by ourselves and I'm like, when is your mom coming home?
Like, talk about imposter syndrome, right?
Yes, that's how I felt. And in nursing, they always joke, fake it till you make it. And I guess it's true with motherhood at first. But I felt a little ill prepared because I focused so much on the course of the pregnancy and not the aftermath. But breastfeeding, everyone made it look so easy. And I'm so glad that you're doing this podcast because I had a great pregnancy. I had a blast, and some people might just want to slap me for saying that. But breastfeeding was a horrible uphill battle for me. And I didn't join any resources. I didn't read any books. I had Nolan on the weekend on a Friday night. And I don't know if everyone in the hospital leaves at 6:00 on Friday. There's not a lactation consultant to be found. So the first 48 hours, I'm telling you, I was ready to throw in the towel because I'm like, this is the most challenging thing I've ever done.
And we get blown away by it because we just don't expect it. We're not even thinking along those terms. And then when it is the hardest thing, like you said, some of us just want to throw in the towel partly because it's hard. And I totally get that. But partly it's the mindset that we had going into it. And that is a huge blow because we just did not expect this.
Exactly. I don't know if it's commercials or just the stereotype, like you were saying, that the baby's just going to latch right on and then it's going to be the most convenient and easiest thing that you've ever done. I felt like if you see those little signs on Pinterest, like nailed it, that was me. It was like the baby, I'm trying to cover up. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to get the baby to latch on. And it definitely didn't look like this special moment plastered all over the internet.
I know. I've had a few moms say it's just one big hot mess.
Hot mess, a huge hot mess. And then I didn't really have anyone to talk to because of my peers. I was one of the first to have a child. And so, and then at the time, my son's dad, he was playing Major League Baseball. He was playing for the Cubs. So he had to go back to work in, I don't know, about 10 minutes after I had the baby. So I was kind of sitting there all by myself in Chicago. My family was in Pennsylvania and the lactation consultant didn't show up I think that she came in on Monday. And the first thing she said was, you're not going to be able to breastfeed with implants. I ended up breastfeeding just fine with them. For anybody else out there who has that on their mind and is worried, don't let that discourage you. But sometimes I think that the way that you get approached by your help can make such a big difference because your hormones are everywhere.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to talk about the work that you do, but I'm sure you know also that you can say the same thing to a person, but it's a lot how we accept what you say is your approach, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so here it is. It was like TGIF in the hospital. There's nobody to be found. Then you finally wait for the consultant to come in, and she actually gave you pretty poor information because she's really not able to tell that at just that moment in time. You have to go through a lot more working with the mom of breastfeeding before that decision is ever come close to making.
Right, like give me a chance, right?
Yeah, so not much help in the hospital. So now you get home, and was Nolan breastfeeding and it was just killing you? Was he gaining and it was just hurting you? Or were you having other problems with milk supply and with him even latching on? So
after that initial experience, in my mind, I'm just worried that he's not going to eat. And then, I'm feeding him, I feel like crazy. I'm just worried that he's not getting enough. I didn't really have a good method or pattern down. And finally, after a few days, I'm pumping to try and increase my milk supply. Little did I know my milk supply was great, and I was actually causing myself to be engorged. I called Children's Hospital that was fortunately across the street and found a lactation consultant who was kind enough to come over, and she was fantastic. But she opened my fridge and it was hilarious because she's like, okay, your body is going to think that you have multiples. You need to stop what you're doing. She showed me how I could weigh him if I was really concerned about him not getting enough. I could weigh him before. I don't know if that's really something that you would suggest, but for me, it put my mind at ease and I didn't try and pump so much or keep the path that I was going with it. And I noticed that he was getting more than enough, but my son was small. He was 2 weeks early. He was 6 pounds, 12 ounces. He lost some weight in the hospital when we got home. So my biggest fear was that he wasn't going to be eating enough. And that's what led to just pumping like crazy in between.
Well, it's a very normal thing. It's every mother's fear, because we don't have this invisible container, see the milk going in. And if our baby has a larger than average weight loss, I would be worried about the mother who's not worried about her baby getting enough. And so, and we're all, I was just so clueless about so many things. So it would be a normal thing for you to want to, have proof that he's gaining and for you to keep pumping to make sure that you're making enough milk. And while it would not be the first thing or the second thing that I would tell every mother I'm working with to weigh her baby before and after, the beauty of being an experienced IBCLC is that you learn to treat every mother and baby as their own individual pair. Mm-hmm. And I certainly, when the situation calls for it, and I see a particularly over anxious mom and there's enough reason, then I might suggest to her to, do the whole before and after thing. And then there are many more mothers who I would say, let's stay away from that. It's going to make you obsessive.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking.
There's not a reason for you to do that. And here's another way that I can show you that, you can be reasonably sure your baby is getting enough. But sometimes that plan does not work with another mom-baby pair. So it's sounding like she took the time to really talk to you and listen to you. And that was her determination that this mother and baby pair, this mom will be better, at least in the very, very, very short term, to weigh her baby before and after, to settle her nerves so she can start to relax about breastfeeding and also take the time to start combining with what and the scale says with what's happening with your baby. And then gradually you start to learn and accept and understand and appreciate the cues that your baby is giving you. Mm-hmm. And then you don't need the scale anymore.
Fortunately, she brought the scale and she took it away. So it was kind of like a one-time thing, but I needed that evidence. I'm very scientific and factual. And once she showed me that once, I felt so much more confident and it was a huge weight off my shoulders. And then I actually did donate some of the breast milk that I had been hoarding. And then I kept some. Excellent. I didn't know in the beginning that your breast milk will change because, like I said, I only read the pregnancy books. So I didn't need to keep and store it all for myself. So we donated some of that, which was great.
Did you donate to a milk bank?
Yes.
Which I love. I love when mothers donate their milk, period. But when you donate, you could be saving many children's lives that you will never even know. But it's truly a gift that you're giving.
That visit really helped me feel good for so many different reasons, and that was definitely one of them. I didn't know that you could do that, so it was a huge eye-opener as well.
If I get to meet moms for a breastfeeding class or talk to them before, I'm telling them certain things, but other moms just don't know, and I worked with the mom about a month ago, and she just literally dumped down the drain about 3 ounces of their very early milk, the colostrum, because she was making so much. And her and her husband said, well, I still have so much in here in my breasts. I guess we don't need it. I don't know how long it's going to last. So I guess I'll just get rid of it. And like my jaw dropped because I'm like, that is like the best medicine ever for new babies. And that could have gone to 10 different babies, all your colostrum. Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, exactly. If any of it would ever spill, I would freak out. So.
Yeah, crying over spilt milk takes on a whole different meaning, right?
In breastfeeding, it does. I'm like, oh, this is what they were talking about with this.
So talk to me about the pumping that you were doing. And it sounds like she was able to describe to you and explain to you why you shouldn't be doing so much pumping. So there are many listeners on the show who may be pregnant who just don't really have an understanding of why they shouldn't be doing that. So can you just explain to everybody why you would not want to be doing that?
Sure. She explained to me that basically this is a supply and demand situation, and the baby is going to dictate the supply. So if I'm pumping in between the baby feeding, then it seems like the demand is going up and then the supply is going to go up. And I had a few times that I had a lot of issues with being engorged and having mastitis. I think I had it twice. And a big part of it is just my milk ducts getting clogged. And I mean, at the time, my breasts were, shiny. They were so full. And then when they're so full like that, the baby couldn't latch. So I was having a lot of issues just around my bad habit that started right when I got home of pumping unnecessarily in between feedings. When you're engorged like that, I'm sure you obviously have seen this before, it's hard for them to latch because you're just so full. So I started just to get things back to normal. I stopped pumping as often as I was. And then I also would just pump, a half ounce off or something just to kind of get it to a point where Nolan could latch properly. And that really helped so much.
She explained that really well to you. You explained it to us really well. And what I love about mothers being able to see a lactation consultant early on is they're able to, again, assess you and your baby, your breast, your milk, just you as a pair, and not treat you as the same as you might treat the next mom across the street. So for you, she determined that it was not in your best interest to keep pumping because you could make a bad situation, meaning having way too much milk, making it difficult for your baby to latch on, and your breast always being so overly full and setting yourself up for risk factors like clogged ducts and mastitis. So she can really teach you about why you shouldn't be doing that on any regular basis at the moment. Mm-hmm. And then she might have, met with someone else and said, you aren't making enough milk. Your baby is struggling getting good feedings. We need to get you pumping.
Increase it. Yes.
Increase it. So everybody is different. And that's what I love about seeing someone early on, because I think you'll probably agree, like you have the baby and then like whomp, like there's so much that happens with your breast and your baby and feeding in literally like 3 to 5 days time that it can leave us being so frustrated with our situation if we're struggling, and how nice it is for someone to help get you on the right track.
Exactly. You're exhausted, first of all, and this is something that needs to happen almost immediately after you have the baby, and having someone there that can look at the situation with from an unbiased standpoint that isn't emotionally charged is just priceless. And I think that that's why, even in my field, when I'm helping people with nutrition and such, it's so hard to make a judgment regarding your own situation from an unbiased standpoint.
Exactly. So talk to me a little bit about how breastfeeding evolved for you, because even if we get off to a good start, a rocky start, breastfeeding evolves for us. Our baby changes, grows, sometimes picks up some habits that aren't so great. Sometimes it's just incredibly easy and smooth the whole time. So how was breastfeeding for you for the first several months?
For me, it was always a challenge for my son. I ended up cutting out a lot of different foods. He was having silent reflux. I was taking him to a GI. He just was having a lot of trouble with colic and things like that. He was a tough baby. I always joke that, he's going to owe me big time and I'm not going to let him forget about it. It wasn't an easy path for me. I think that a big factor is that I wish that I could go back in time would just be to go with the flow more. Because like you said, things are constantly changing. And I was really hung up on, it has to be this routine or that routine, or we have to do it this way, or this will be the best. And sometimes I just wish I would have sat back and enjoyed it. I didn't really take the time to enjoy when my son was so small that you would put him somewhere in a car seat and he would just stay there. I was so stressed out about everything that I'm like, why didn't I just enjoy some of the nice things about a newborn? You're not baby proofing. You're not chasing around a crawling little one. I wish I would have taken the time to just appreciate things as they went.
I love that saying, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
It's so true. And I think about how much easier it would be with the second one, because I really feel for all new moms. And in my situation, I was home by myself as a stay-at-home mom, which is a huge blessing. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. But, you know, my son's dad wasn't around and I didn't have family members around. And it's very taxing as a new mom. And you, especially as a stay-at-home mom, you feel as though you have to do everything perfect because that's your quote only job.
Right.
And sometimes the expectations that I put on myself as a stay-at-home mom versus a working mom, because at this point I've done both, I put so much more pressure on myself when I didn't have a job, because it would be like, well, of course I can do all of this perfect. I have nothing else to focus on. The task at hand, having a new baby and breastfeeding and getting on a sleep schedule, I mean, it's challenging.
Yeah, and I often think about to my early days too. I often think, well, Lori, what was the definition of perfect anyway?
Thank you.
And I don't really know the answer to that. So like I was striving for perfection, but I wasn't quite sure what that looked like anyway.
Right. It's this completely unattainable thing that you don't, who even knows what we're striving for? It's so true. There's this pressure that, you know, the house has to be immaculate, the baby's fed, everyone looks perfect, and all of the errands are done and all the chores are done, and dinner's something different every single night. And sometimes just the standards that we can hold ourselves to, the pressure of it, that's not really what's the most important, because a lot of times you just really need to bond with that new baby and try and find ways to ask for help. You don't need to do everything. I think about it now, looking back, no one came and gave me a trophy for never asking for help.
Exactly. And for me, you know, whatever I thought perfection was, because my husband worked very, very long hours, and I would think, okay, well, if the day did go the way that I expected it, then who was walking in my front door? Like, I didn't have a supervisor saying, great job, you get a good evaluation, you're going to get a raise next year. Who was that for anyway? And if it was for myself, was I then happy and satisfied when things went well? And the answer is not necessarily, because I was alone, I was isolated, I was just in my own head. So that's what I mean about that whole perfection. What was it I was striving for, and what did it mean anyway? And who even knew? And what did that mean?
Yes, I've always been a perfectionist, and I look back to my childhood. I was expected to have great grades, just participate in every activity. Everything had to be done. And it carried on into my adult life. And I realized that so much joy has come into my life once I let go of trying to be perfect.
Taking a little break so I can tell you all about our lovely All About Breastfeeding community on Facebook. This is a place where you can interact with other listeners of this podcast. You can share stories of new motherhood and breastfeeding, and even ask a question of one of the guests. I will post questions and quotes of the day and cartoons. We have a lot of fun there. All you need to do is search for these 4 words: All About Breastfeeding Community. Need to have those 4 words, otherwise it brings you to the wrong page. And then just ask to join, and I will see you in the All About Breastfeeding community group. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, you know what? And one of the things I was, like to talk to my guests about is what are some of the things that you might have changed. And I think a running theme from my interview with you is just, taking time to sit back, relax, smell the roses, and just let go. It's so cliche that time does go so fast. And so we want to let go and just let things chill, because it does go so fast. But also, not only that it does go so fast, and that's why you should just let go, but we should just let it go a whole lot more, just because that's really the way to be, to just let it be and let it unfold in those, especially in those very early postpartum days, and not to push anything, not to rush anything, and not to try and mold into a specific box that we think it should be in.
Mm-hmm. And take it one day at a time. Yeah. I think that I would get very overwhelmed looking ahead.
Yes, because because if our babies aren't sleeping at 2 months, we're thinking, well, what's going to happen at 6 months? Well, I don't have to think about 6 months right now. Mm-hmm. We're just at the 2 month stage.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was at. And my son didn't sleep through the night until 7 months. And I realized why sleep deprivation is a war tactic. But
Yes.
I mean, it's awful. But looking back on it, it was a short time and it did end. And we figured out some techniques that I think I should have tried a little bit sooner, because I did do a lot of breastfeeding to kind of comfort him. And while that's great, I think at some point they need to learn the skill of self-soothing, which was something that I kind of kept from him, robbed from him a little bit. And so the next time around, that's something that I would consider.
Maybe, maybe not. Here's the thing is that some moms feel like that because, when we're doing something different and then we think we have the panacea and we think the grass is greener, and that still might not, because you'll have a different baby and that still might not necessarily be. It's all these many things to consider. But one of the things that I like what you said before, and I totally agree, is that we don't spend much time thinking about that we're going to have a baby and how we're going to mother this baby and what that world is going to look like. And once you have a baby, you can clearly see. And then what some moms, we're very much into if I have another baby, now you have a pretty good idea of some of the things that you're going to do better or different. And, one of the big things is, like you said, sleep deprivation, and that's huge. And so when I'm working with moms for the very first time, as early in pregnancy as I possibly can, I'm trying to really get them into the mindset of what life is like for those first, let's just say even 3 months. And I start to tell them things like, well, feeding your baby can easily take 8 or 9 or 10 hours alone. Then there's, bathing and burping and calming a fussy baby and all that other good stuff. So you've easily given yourself a 12-hour job. And parents look at me like, what?
Yes. I'm so glad you say that.
And I want to get them into that mindset, because then I get to ask them, how do you feel at the end of the day of your 8-hour job? And most people are saying, pretty tired. I just want to come home and just veg and do whatever. I'm like, well, this is going to be at least 12 hours and more than likely more. So I'm trying to get them to think in the mindset of, who is it that you can use or ask in your family or local friends to be able to help you, because you're going to need to have someone around so you can take naps throughout the day. And here's, what you said, like you wish you knew that it was okay to ask for help. And I try to get people into the mindset, like if you don't have anybody in your life, then maybe it's about starting now and putting aside some money every week so you could pay someone like a postpartum doula to come in to help you. Because I'm trying to get them into the mindset that this pregnancy and birth thing is very, very important. But you also need to be thinking about that time postpartum. And I aim to help you prepare for that time period as much as I possibly can, because I wish someone, would have done that for me. And you're probably saying the same thing. And I don't know if you knew at that point that, your baby's father was not going to be there. And if someone told you, listen, you're going to be working 14 or more hours a day, you're going to need help, that would have gotten you in that mindset. And you might have started to plan for it. You might have started to look at people in your life. You might have started to put away money that you could hire someone. You would have had a heads up about it. And most of us have no heads up.
Yes. And I think that the other thing, back to the stay-at-home parent, you think that you won't need help because you're staying at home. That's right. What you think in your mind. You're like, well, I'm home. That's who the help is. It's me. And I know that, 12 to 14 hours, but with your interrupted sleep, it's extremely difficult. And I noticed that everything just runs short when you're sleep deprived. Your patience, the way that you will handle things that come up that are obstacles, it's a whole different thing if you're not getting any rest. So if you can instill in somebody, hey, listen, no one's saying that you're incapable. They're just saying that you need sleep. So getting that rest, when my friends have babies, the typical thing is to kind of send a present. I just go over there and I let them take a shower and a nap.
That is better than any blanket or sleeper I could ever receive if someone were to come and do that for me.
Yeah, I'm like, let me come over. I'm going to bring you guys food. You can take a hot shower, because the first few showers that I had, oh my goodness, so much anxiety. Just like, I have to be away from the baby. I'm going to go into this room and pull a curtain and I can't see the baby.
Right.
That was really hard for me. I mean, obviously the baby was fine. I took a shower, but just having that, okay, somebody else is going to watch the baby while I can take a shower and wash my hair and just take a nap. It's a huge help. So even like you said, if you're planning for that so that you could have somebody come and help you even one day a week where you can take a little you time and recharge your batteries, you're going to be a better mom.
You are the best postpartum friend any new mother could have. And
oh, thanks.
Because you lived through it and you know what they need and you're taking the time to be able to provide for them what they need. It's like, it's just like the best thing ever. And I bet you every mother who you give that gift of your time and a meal will remember that for the rest of their life.
I hope so. I remember that's what I appreciated the most, when my aunt would come and visit and I could just go and take a nap. It was amazing.
Yeah. We just don't realize it. I really like what you said before too, is that we don't really think about that needing help because we are the stay-at-home mom. We are that help. We are the person doing that. And the problem is we just don't realize how you describe that sleep deprivation changes your world, changes the way that you look at everything and the way that you are with yourself, with your baby, with the day ahead when you're incredibly sleep deprived day in and day out. It really begins to have a psychological effect on us.
It does. You just become so much more short fused, being able to kind of sit back and have that mental capacity, that clarity to take the situation and just approach it with more patience and more understanding. You need that. And if I could tell myself, my former self, anything, it would be, don't be the hero. Asking for help makes you much more wise than just trying to, grit your teeth and bear it and get by. You can actually thrive if you put the right systems in place like you were describing. So that's such valuable advice that you give to everyone.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing that also, because it's just something that needs to be said to parents, to mothers, actually many times, many different ways. So they're really getting that message loud and clear to prepare for that time, and that it's a sign of strength to be able to ask for help. And it's not a sign that you're weak and can't do it and you're not a good enough mother. It's that you know yourself, you know the situation, you know it's hard, and you want to do your best, and you're going to ask for help so you can be the best that you can be. Yes,
exactly. I love that. It's a sign of strength.
It's a sign of strength. I really appreciate you sharing with us all of this. Again, I think what a lot of us experience is looking at other women and their lives and thinking everybody has it so perfect, and for good reasons. And I totally get it. When you're asking new moms how things are going, they have a smile and they're saying, great, everything's fine. Because to say that it's not fine and we're having a difficult time makes some women feel that they are not the good enough mother. And so that keeps us from being honest with other mothers. And one of the things I love to do with this podcast and have moms on like you is to be able to share the truth that it's the best thing in the whole wide world. And yet there are still quite a bit of difficulties that come with the learning curve of taking home a baby and being a new mother and getting through those first few months postpartum and that first year, that even when things go well, it still is difficult and we need help.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, motherhood is by far the most amazing, best thing that I've ever done. But I would be sitting here and lying if I didn't say it was also the most difficult. And I think that was something like you were saying when I would ask others about, oh, how is it? You're a new mom. I always heard all the puppies and rainbows. I never heard that they were tired. I never heard that they hadn't slept in, however long, or they needed to ask for some help with breastfeeding, things like that. And it's okay. It's okay that every day of your life isn't perfect. And I think that oftentimes just with social media and things like that, like you said, you only show one side, and there's usually more layers to people's lives, and just being a little more open and sharing your story with others helps them relate and think, okay, it's not just me, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're alone in a situation and that you're the only one having trouble with it. That makes you just feel inadequate.
I often tell some of my most active listeners, may say this all the time, but the day that I sat in my first postpartum mothers group when Alicia was 6 months old, and I heard one of the first moms, because we went around sharing just a little bit about who we were and why we joined the group. And when one of the mothers said a few things that were like part of my life, one of the things one of the moms shared was like, some days I am so thrilled to be the mother of this beautiful baby boy, and other days I wonder what the blank I did with my life. And I thought, oh my God, I'm normal.
Yes. Right. And that's a realistic, that is a normal feeling.
But I didn't know that. And every time I had those thoughts in my own head, I battered myself even more.
You felt guilty, and then, you're beating yourself up.
Yeah, like absolutely. So just to hear other people speak the truth, and that we could say, oh my goodness, someone else is feeling that way, I'm normal. Well, that takes a huge weight off of our shoulders, doesn't it?
Yes. And another thing, not related to breastfeeding, but it was funny because one of my girlfriends who was about to have a baby in February called me, and she was like, hey, before you had Nolan, were you really excited? And I'm like, well, I was really excited, but I was really scared. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that, because I'm so scared right now. I don't understand how this baby's coming out. I'm like, I can completely relate. You're 30 some weeks pregnant and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Because it is really intimidating, but you never hear about the other side of things, that, people are afraid and they have different emotions running through them. And it's not just a time of 100% joy. I mean, overwhelming, the grand theme is joy, but there are some days where you're just thinking the same thoughts that you were saying. What did I get myself into? And I don't know about this.
Yes. And we can't turn around in 30 weeks. Your friend can't turn around, but again, what a great friend you are, Karey, to say, oh, yes, I felt the same way. Well, I bet you that took 20 pounds of weight off of this poor woman's shoulders just by hearing you say that.
I hope so. I remember saying the same thing to my son's dad, and he's like, well, you can't turn back now.
Like, gee, thanks. I knew that, but that's not helpful, but that's how I feel.
It's so true. It's so true. So there's so many different emotions, and all of them I'm realizing from the sooner that I was honest about how I felt about things, how you were saying in that postpartum group, I wish I would have found one of those too. The sooner that I opened up about it, whereas more times than not, the other person said that they had a similar experience.
Exactly. Yeah, we can really do right by our friends, or we could make them feel worse by not being truthful.
I never realized, I feel as though find the moms that are just accepting, the mom friends that you can find that are just accepting of everything that you're doing, because unfortunately it seems, I don't know why it's like this, but sometimes we can be so hard on each other as moms, just the judging. And that's, I think, what the hardest part is. And once I realized, hey, we're all the same. We're all trying to figure this out. We all want what's best for our kids. And when you can find those mom friends to link up with that are just supportive and, don't have any crazy expectations, it's just a huge breath of fresh air.
Wonderful words of wisdom, wonderful pearls of wisdom for you to share, Karey. Thank you so much. I really want my listeners to get to know you a little bit better with regards to the business that you are doing. And I think that you have some valuable suggestions or tips that you could share with our pregnant and breastfeeding moms about fitness and about nutrition. So what do you say you talk about that a little bit?
I would love to share about that. What I do is I work, and how you were saying that everyone's situation is so different, every mom and baby. That's the basic principle that I use in fitness and nutrition, that every person needs a different regimen, or they're going to need certain specific things that are relevant to them. And with breastfeeding moms, one of the mistakes I see so often made is that they're trying to get directly into a fat loss program, slash their calories. Their milk supply will suffer. When their milk supply suffers, their baby potentially could be more fussy, then everyone's getting less sleep, then you're making poor food choices. It's almost like a domino effect. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to really hone in on the particular nutritional needs of a woman in each phase. So one of my favorite clients to work with are postpartum, breastfeeding, or just moms in general because of the time constraints and things. I like to tailor things directly to them because I've noticed when I became a mom, I just didn't have the extra time that I used to have to go and hit the gym X amount of days on this certain plan that I saw on the internet that's supposed to be the best plan to lose fat and build muscle. I had to make my own path, and I really love doing that for other people.
When you're working with moms, do you work with moms before they become pregnant, helping to set them up for the best pregnancy possible, nutrition and fitness wise?
I do. Most of my clientele are women between the age of 25 to 45. So they'll be at various stages, but say a woman comes and they're wanting to become pregnant, they're working on that. You do want to make sure your nutrition is in a certain spot. You don't want to be cutting your calories. You want to make sure your dietary fat's up. You want to pay attention to your cycle. And obviously this would be working hand in hand with their doctor. I'm not a registered dietitian. I am a registered nurse, and I can give some suggestions that would be the most beneficial for them so that they go into their pregnancy healthy and happy. And starting a fitness program when you're pregnant is frowned upon. But if you get these good habits in place, you can continue to have a great fit pregnancy. And then that makes it so much easier. With my son, I actually was at a spin class the day that I had him, and my labor and delivery it was so simple. And that's probably, like I said, people are going to be like, well, I worked out and mine wasn't this way. And everyone is different, but I can attribute some of why this happened is to just being active and doing prenatal yoga and keeping myself in a good condition. It made so much of my pregnancy a lot more manageable.
Having all of this information and teaching it to other moms, I'm curious to know with the postpartum and everything that you went through, because we talked about you bringing home a baby and you're sleep deprived and you know what it is you should be doing and you know what it is you should be eating. But I imagine if you're just like any rest of us, it was difficult for you. So can you tell me some of the tips and tricks that you have either developed for yourself or for other postpartum moms in those really early, like 4 to 6 weeks after a baby, to make sure that they're able to get in something decent in those very really quick times you have to actually hydrate and feed yourself between taking care of a baby and breastfeeding?
Absolutely. I want everyone to know that I am not perfect, even though I am a fitness professional. So there were some mornings that I only ate Dove chocolate. I'm not going to sit here and say that my nutrition was always on point because there's a lot going on, and let's be serious, every now and then it's okay to have the foods that you want to have. I'm really a big believer of no foods are off limits. It's just about fitting them in moderation. I would say the number one thing that I could recommend to anybody who is about to have the baby is to have some of these foods on hand. If the last couple weeks of your pregnancy, you're feeling okay and you can make a few things to put in the freezer that you will just be able to pull out and make some healthy casseroles, just even cook up some chicken breasts and freeze them. That way you can just pull them out and it'll be so much easier, and you'll have some fresh food that isn't processed that'll be at your disposal. And then I wouldn't stock up on too many things that are maybe your snacky foods that are calling out to you when you're sleep deprived. For me, whenever I'm sleep deprived, and I think it's just human nature, you're going to want those quick sugars that boost that serotonin immediately. So you're going to want, the sugary snacks. And if you don't have them readily at your disposal and you have better choices around like your fruits and vegetables and things like that, you're going to be a little less likely to, at least I know for me, I'm not going out of the house the first couple of weeks that I had the baby on a whim because I was looking like a disaster. So if I didn't have that food right next to me, then I was more apt to pick healthy choices.
Yeah, my sister has a fun saying. She's like, "It's calling my name. It's calling my name."
Yes, it will. It will
That
do
you know
that.
that food that you really shouldn't be eating that's sitting in the pantry. So a very good tip about just not even having it in the house, because before you had a baby, you may have been more likely to just take your keys and go. But at this point, in the very early days of postpartum, you're a lot less likely to just, like you said, go out on a whim. The other thing I do is I appreciate your honesty. I kind of giggled to myself when you said, you know what, there were times when I just had some Dove chocolate. That's just what I did. And you're, of course, saying that everything in moderation, but being a fitness instructor, I have to say that I definitely have my own personal bias. And I'm thinking, she's not going to do that. But guess what? She told us that she does.
Because I'm a human first. So.
Again, I appreciate that honesty. One other thing I'm curious about, because I talked to this moms and breastfeeding class too. There are a lot of shakes out on the market. One of my favorite ones is the Vega shake. Mm-hmm. But do you talk to moms about, not as a meal replacement, but to have it in the house as a very something quick meal that they can do, is to put some, whatever their choice of milk is, powder, some other supplements added to it. And rather than totally skip a meal and have it be 2 or 3 o'clock before they've had anything, that having a shake once in a while is a good thing too.
Yes, you know what? That's a great point. And I'm a big believer in having some kind of a protein shake. If you're a pregnant mom and you're breastfeeding, I would go the natural route. I'm not exactly familiar with the Vega shakes. I'm assuming that's a vegetarian protein, plant-based.
Yes, and it's also for people, because a lot of people nowadays have various foods that they cannot eat.
Right,
so
with the dairy
it's
in the way.
wheat-free, gluten-free, dairy, and all that. So it's just one of those shakes that has really good quality stuff, and it removes the thinking of if you're gluten or egg-free or dairy-free and you need all that. It just takes the thinking out of it.
I love that. That's a great suggestion. Especially like you said, whey protein is probably the fastest absorbing, the best protein. But with breastfeeding, like you mentioned, sometimes with those food groups, different things can cause problems. And it would be, in my opinion, easier to just let's eliminate it and just go with something like that. And it's nice because the plant-based protein shakes, they actually have carbohydrate in them, which can help with your supply. You want to make sure that there's a lot of moms that either goes one of two ways, where they're overeating, like you said, they're ravenous, or they're like, oh my goodness, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I haven't eaten anything. So how you mentioned, I would kind of take the nutritional needs of the person into account, but those are a couple great things about those plant-based shakes.
If one of my listeners wanted to be able to touch base with you, have any questions for you, or be able to work with you, I know you're in Phoenix and people could work with you one-on-one. Do you have anything, and you can tell us a little bit about that, but do you also have anything online that people could work with you?
Yes, so I'm completely online. I only do online coaching, and most of my consults, I use Skype or FaceTime so that we can see each other. I really like making that connection with clients, and they can find me at northingtonfitnessandnutrition.com is our website.
Excellent.
I know, I would love to hear from them. And I think what you do, Lori, is so amazing. And I'm so excited to share your resource with some of my friends and family and people who would need this kind of help, because I think it's so important.
And likewise, is there anything that I have not asked you that you wanted to be able to share with my audience before we say goodbye?
No, I think that we've covered everything. I really love that you focus so much on the time commitment of after you have the baby. I cannot praise you enough for that, because no one was doing that when I was pregnant. It seemed like what to expect when you're expecting through the pregnancy and not after you have the baby. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I've incorporated into the work that I do, and a large part of it has to do with all the things I wish I was told, and then working with the thousands of moms I've worked with over the years, the things that I hear again and again. And again, some of my regular listeners may have heard me tell this story, but I just thought I would have so much time. I thought I'd feed the baby, they sleep for 4, feed the baby, sleep for 4.
Right.
And I knew that I'd be a little tired, but I went out and I love to do crafts. And I went out to Michael's and I bought all of these different crafts that I would be working on while the baby was sleeping. And I love to cook. And I thought, a lot of these dishes that I make that come out pretty good, like I really had this vision of really wanting to perfect those dishes. So I thought that I would be doing all these things. And it's not that I didn't want to stay home with Alicia and didn't want to care for her. I just thought that there was a limitation to the time that she would need me. And so the more the days went on, that I was more and more sleep deprived and less likely to be able to work on those crafts. I used to pass by the door, the closet that they was in, and I would get so angry. It just fed my anger even more that I realized I'm not going to have time for all this stuff. And one day, she was probably about 2.5, 3 months old. I packaged up all this stuff and I marched into Michael's and I brought back all the yarn and the macrame and all this other stuff because I realized I have no idea when I'm going to get to this. I mean, I had embroidery, cross stitch. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah,
but
you're like, this ship has sailed. I completely agree. I had Nolan at 38 weeks, and I remember probably about 2 weeks in, when his actual due date came along, I bawled my eyes out and I said I wanted my 2 weeks back ready. And, everyone else is like, oh, I just, I want to have the baby. I'm so done being pregnant. And I'm like, oh, they're so much easier to watch when they're in there. So.
My mother would always say that that baby is much easier in the belly.
Yes, it's the truth. And we do think, they say sleep when the baby sleeps. Well, that's an amazing plan, but when am I going to do everything else? So
yeah, and what if my baby only sleeps for an hour at a time and I fell asleep 40 minutes into that hour?
Right, and then what happens if you can't sleep because you're watching the baby breathe because you're worried that the baby's going to stop breathing? So you're not sleeping. There's a different level of anxiety with a new baby that I don't think anyone really talks about, because it took a lot for me to just let my body relax and actually get a good night's sleep, because I felt like I was always on edge.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was a particularly anxious person before Alicia was born, but afterwards, it's like I gave birth to the baby, then the placenta, then this huge word in capital letters called guilt, and then the next word was anxiety. And I never thought about that either, but that was my life. Yeah.
It's so true. And I'm like, oh, because you think when you're pregnant, once you have the baby, all the worrying in your mind will be over, because you're like, oh, I had this baby. The baby is healthy, because everyone has that. Tell me that everything's okay once you have the baby. And then I'm like, oh, in my mind, I was thinking, and then the weight will be lifted and I will never worry again. And I'm like, oh, this is when it all starts.
Right. It's like, it's that, that's thing. It's like, what were you thinking?
It's so funny. We have very similar stories, because I just had this idea that I would be getting all this rest while the baby was sleeping and everything would be done. And it does feel like your day gets shorter and shorter.
I know, but we will end on a very positive. I mean, and not that that's not positive, but you know what it is? It's both of us will also agree that it's all worth it. It's the most beautiful thing that one could ever do is to, be pregnant or have a baby in the house. It's just the best blessing ever. And I have 3 kids, and I certainly wouldn't trade anything. I like to be honest about it all, but I would never trade anything for it in the whole wide world, because it's the best thing ever.
Oh, that is the absolute truth. Everything in my life is better because of my son. He's 6. We just, Christmas just passed, and seeing some of these things through the eyes of a child, there is nothing better. I mean, there is no way to even describe. I never knew I could love something as much as I love my son. And so it is 100% worth it. It just would be nice if, you knew the real deal of what you're getting yourself into.
Well, I tell parents all the time in class, I am the pain in the tush who's telling you the real deal. And I might sound like a Debbie Downer, but I need to know that I've done a good job. So there you go. There's the real deal.
But then you have this, when you get home, you have no surprises. You're like, okay, I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. And
because someone planted those seeds, I have some idea. Even if I didn't believe that person, the seeds were planted.
That's another thing. People might shake off the advice, and what can you do except for just let people know, hey, this is how it'll be easier for you. just recruiting some extra help, it can make such a difference. And then you're going to enjoy that time even more. And like you said, it just breaks my heart when I hear about anyone having fertility issues and such, because it truly is. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yes. Well, thank you for everything that you shared, for your many pearls of wisdom. I'm thrilled that you were able to share some really excellent advice, nutrition-wise, for my listeners. And I certainly hope that they get in touch with you, because you were a wealth of information with everything breastfeeding and postpartum. And you can add to that with all the knowledge that you have with nutrition and before and after the baby. So I appreciate you, Karey. Thank you so much for being on the All About Breastfeeding show.
No, thank you so much, Lori. Thank you for having me. I had a great conversation with you.
You're welcome. Have you heard that Phoenix, Arizona is blessed with an amazing birthing center? Baby Moon Inn Birth Center is the best option for families who want access to midwifery care in and out of a hospital setting. You can experience birth in a comfortable home-like setting where natural birth is the focus. Laboring in water, being able to walk outside during labor, and enjoy the beautiful garden. This is what birth can be like for you. There is so much more to learn about Baby Moon. The staff would love to have the opportunity to meet you and would like to extend an invitation for you to attend a free Choices in Childbirth class and a tour of the birth center. All you need to do is call 602-314-7755. That's 602-314-7755 and ask for the tour dates. You can also go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast. And on the right-hand side of the page, you will see a link that will bring you to the calendar, and you can sign up for the tour yourself. When you come in for the tour, make sure that you tell them you found out about it from the All About Breastfeeding podcast, and you will be given a very lovely free gift.